want to put a disclaimer out there. I asked multiple times if it was okay to use video, use the name, if
Yeah, and I said no.
yeah, please don't do the video.
No, I'm kidding.
So you are.
It's all right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Don't use my actual address because
that's a part of the original tweet.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So yeah, because remember when you mailed me the shoes? I had the return address. So.
Damn it.
Yeah, but go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Polly. I should have prepared a cheer or something. I didn't. I have been an activist, like a political activist, obviously, from I think for 11 years now, and I haven't been on the front lines, or I don't have my own movement or something. Which actually, regrettably, I don't have my own movement because it would be great. I do participate in protests and different movements and stuff like that. Well, and mostly I am anti-Putin, which is, in current political climate, it's pretty much the only acceptable choice for me.
Right. So when you talk about activism,
what do I mean?
Well, I we'll get into the specifics, right? Because I do want to I want to know how somebody in a climate that Putin has created, how you are an activist in a climate like that. But
see the big. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
What I was gonna say was like if you're not on the front lines, what exactly do you do?
Oh. Well, it's ironic because when I got into this, it was 11 years ago. It was a whole different situation. Mm-hmm. And for me, it started, I wasn't that much interested in politics, I guess, but I was studying to be a journalist, which I did not become exactly for the reasons that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
But it was a very different situation because then all you had to do is join some movement. Like you choose anything that fits you best and you go with it. There was it only kind of started. It existed, of course. Some movements existed before. Some groups of even political parties existed before. It's just in 2011 for me. Personally, things changed because there was an election, a Duma election, and it was terribly rigged. There was so many videos of people just throwing in ballots, or stacks of ballots, and of people voting repeatedly in different places. And then there was a protest, which was actually. The police was pretty brutal during that protest, and to me it was one of those moments when, well, what can I do personally? And then I started joining the protest, and then we had this really long ongoing protest on Isakivskaya Square, which is kind of the center of the city, right in front of the one of the governmental buildings. So it seemed like the right place to do a protest. And it was day and night, so we just came there and we just stayed there. Of course, occasionally people had to go to work and to go to school, stuff like that, and we replaced each other. But it was ongoing. I don't remember how long it lasted. Actually, it was so long ago. But there wasn't defined movement. It wasn't a political party. It was just people.
Right. More against an idea saying this is bad, not for this person or against this person. Just what's happening is not okay.
Normally, there were some people that normally I would not be in the same place with.
I see.
They had very different views. Yeah, they have very different political views. There were some anarchists, imperialists, anyone.
Yeah.
Just people.
But you guys had a common enemy.
With the fact that there is one party that's taking everything. And that's trying to rule everything, even though they obviously don't represent the variety of people and the variety of views. So yeah, that was kind of it for me. And then I went to join the observing team for the election, for the presidential election. And it was even worse, because you'd think that after major protests throughout the whole country, things would change, but no, they didn't. It became worse, and the reaction actually that we faced, it was a bit different, because we got thrown out of the this voting space.
So you were there. You were there as an observer, like to be to make sure that
like you know there are organizations that do the observation during election, and you can observe like as a representative of a party.
Right.
I went with an independent organization, and well, I got thrown out.
Wow.
Not just like during the day, but like closer to the night, to the end of the voting, and when it was time to count the ballots, they asked us if we like could leave, and then they called the cops, and the cops made us leave.
Now, when during this this particular moment, was your organization trying to say, hey, this isn't okay, or hey, something's going on over there, and then that's why, or you guys were just observing and they still just wanted you to leave?
Well, we were observing, and we were supposed to question the things that are happening there. So if we see that something is going on that's not supposed to be going on, we were supposed to say something, and maybe ask the chairman or chairwoman, chairperson of the committee to step in. But they were all actually there to just rig the election. They weren't there to observe anything.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Wow.
It was like a whole other can of worms. The elections in Russia, you can Google it if you want to. It's a terrible story.
Yeah.
Tragic, really, but at least the good news is back then in 2012 it was they didn't beat us. The police didn't beat us.
Right.
Because the last election I remember, the police was beating people up and literally throwing them out.
So that's pretty incredible. I definitely it's just funny because here's what's funny about the whole thing for me, and air quotes funny. Well, as you're telling the story, I can't help but notice the similarities in the stories told by conservatives during this last election. Almost too similar, to where I'm like, do these people, because clearly your story, when you look at like the dynamics of power in the stories that we're talking about, where you're talking about the opposition, you're talking about the people who don't have power, right? You're the ones being kicked out. You're the ones so it makes sense. Like that's clearly a true story and matches up with the rest of the international media as it pertains.
Also, like I have proof. I have videos.
Right.
There is a video of me somewhere arguing with the chairwoman.
Really?
Yeah.
I would want to watch it, but I probably wouldn't understand what was.
Oh my god! I hope I will be able to find it. It is somewhere. I think it is on the hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
But I was good.
But for the Trumpers, it does. It my doubt is how similar it is to your story. And now that we know how Russia misinformation campaigns have gone, it's like, wait a minute. Did you hear of actual stories, what happened in Russia, and then decide to retell those stories in the United States? Because they would say that. They would say, we came in to be observers, we were kicked out, we weren't allowed to call this stuff. But these are the people in power saying it. So it doesn't make sense how.
I would believe if some smaller party insisted that happened.
Right.
Like not one of the two leading parties.
Right. And of those two, the the party that's in power. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you're being kicked out. It's so unfair, and oh yeah, it's just too convenient. Too convenient. So I do want to get into so we'll bring it back to today. And one of the things I wanted to start off with was like this whole how misinformation and journalism in Russia works today. You mentioned that you were in school to be a journalist, and then you decided it wasn't for you.
No. It's not that I decided and it wasn't for me.
Yeah,
it's just everything around me decided that it wasn't for me, because like nobody likes a journalist who just wants to write truth.
Right.
and has opinions. God forbid we have opinions.
Yeah.
And my opinions, they're not exactly popular in Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it? What was it exactly? Because I imagine you want to say it one way, and a place like maybe, I don't know, RT will go, no, you're not allowed to write that. And where else?
It's not the place like RT. Right now, it's more like the government, like the censorship.
Yeah.
Our main censorship organization tells you what to say and how to say it.
Right.
You don't get to choose.
So there's
because if you want to say that there's a war going on, you can do that, because then you will be first a foreign agent.
Right.
Which is a brand that is really hard to live with and to function with. And then you would probably get closed.
Yeah. My dogs agree. I don't know if you can hear my
dogs. Well, they're wise.
So I guess part of my question is that we were talking before we pressed record. We talked about like how like when you were in college and then you heard about RT doing internships and at first you were like, oh well, let me check it out, right?
And that's an opportunity.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, cool, a job, and then you figure out, oh, wait a minute, And so the same thing with me, right? So like I'm trying to like, not be so US centric in my news source, and so I kind of branch out, and I'm like, oh, cool, Russian Times, like I want to know news from Russia.
No, it's Russia Today.
Oh, Russia Today, yeah. And so like I want to know news from Russia, like cool. And then it's like,
no, just ask me.
And so how does it work then, right? Like how did you break away from that? Like if you're just inundated with the state media that is only allowed to show one thing, how does any citizen in Russia get the truth?
Well, for me, it happened because of my mom. Because my mom never supported them. Well, she actually never supported anything. Anyone who's in power. So she always questioned it. So yeah, I kind of got it from her. But for most people, I think there is always the event that makes you reevaluate everything. Mm-hmm. And there is always something that happens to you. So some person would leave normally and they would think that everything is okay, like they're making shit up. And then, for instance, their business would get attacked in some way. They would face like prices growing and something else. They would just encounter it in their everyday life, and they would start thinking, and some of them would realize that something's wrong here. And then they would probably go and search. I'm not sure. They would meet someone, or they would read somewhere that there is an alternative. Mm-hmm. They would probably Google it. They would go online to social media. Something somewhere will bring them there. And of course, the word of mouth, because most people. I think the main task of an activist today, and there is a topic that we'll hopefully will get into later, but for most activists, it's very important to spread the information, to talk to people they know.
Right.
To tell them that there is another way, basically. Sure. But like to understand the censorship and the propaganda in Russia, well, I think it would have to go way, way, way back to the Tsar times. Because and that's something I actually learned in my university, which used to be good. We had a course on censorship, so
nice.
That was pretty fun. Yeah. Now, media in Russia, media was originally created as a way for the ruling class to communicate with the people, not as the way for every political power to represent itself, or as the way to for people to spread their truth. No, it was just like official information. That was a source of official information. And well, it's hard to look at today's situation and not see the parallels in it, because I think it was I want to say it was 1812 when there was another war. Another Russian war, and exactly the same situation. The information from the battlefields was all positive, mostly for the people. Like, we're winning everything. I think we're winning, but of course they not always were.
Right.
Well, they did win that war, but it's different.
Well, I mean, which it seems to be par for course with any, like, I guess the idea is the fact that Happy Jesus Day, spoiler, he comes back fine. You ruined it. I didn't even finish the last episode. Thanks, appreciate it. Yugoslav says Privyet. Yugoslav Fub. I didn't know what it said at first. I did while you were talking. Throw it into Google. I know Privyet means, but he put it in the actual Cyrillic, so I have to go cut, paste, put in Google. That's what it says. I didn't actually know how to read that. And Sketchy Guy Hands, hi. Robo's mustache showing up today.
Oh, I completely ignored that.
Thanks. Wow, my heart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll do better next time.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is like, so we've had talks before, like on DMs, as far as like what is real free press, and you know, do even Western nations have it? And while it's debatable that whether or not they have it, and I'm agree that you know, as far as like when you really dig into like who owns the media and how like corporate conglomerates work, and
there is no independent media.
Correct, right? But like you could take
in the UK, you can see the example of the situation that's closest to free press. Because every political power has its own source of media.
So, but people would argue that BBC is just, you know, is state-run media and all that.
But there are there is other media.
Yeah.
Everyone has access to something that would represent their views.
Right. I look
That's
at something
that we don't have.
I look at something like just say the Iraq war and how that turned out. I can go to a media source, and that media source is completely like, you know, caping for the whole thing and why it's great and why we need to go and all that. But then I can go to another channel, and it's full of people saying why this current president is fucking up, why we shouldn't have been there, and yada yada yada. And while we can go, but they're both status quo and they're both just the two people in power and they're not going to let you see outside that paradigm, that does not exist at all in Russia, because what we have now is Putin's new law. I don't know, new in my brain because I just read it, but like the whole misinformation law, where now we're looking at like 15 years in prison.
Yeah. Okay. So. In this instance, we actually have a little more history to get into.
Please.
Because there was a situation in the 90s. In the 90s, we had almost free press. Yeah, we had a lot of different media, and also it was all controlled by different people with different views. In 2000s, the situation was a little bit more different because some independent media started closing, and no one really knew what to make out of it. Because there was always a story that is very complicated, and no one wanted to get into this to understand what's happening. But slowly, like one by one, all the major channels, TV channels, became controlled by government. Aside from like two major ones, like Channel One and Channel Two, Russia channel.
Yeah.
And then there is Russia Today that is oriented to like spread the information in the West and in Europe. But that's a whole different story. We did have independent media. Most of them were branded as foreign agents in the last 10 years, actually. 11. And this spring and this winter/spring, the last ones were closed. But they were closed like permanently and without any options. So for people to receive information from them, some of them still work. They moved the editorial staff and like the writers somewhere abroad because it's the only safe way. Otherwise, they would just get arrested and they would get slapped with this charge of misinformation, or there is another one discrediting the actions of the military force.
Like undermining it, like you're ruining the war effort. Yeah.
I don't remember which exactly. I think it's the misinformation, the fake news. Yeah, that's get you can get you locked up for 15 years. But either one of them can work, actually.
Now, does this only apply to journalism?
What?
Does this only apply to journalism? Like, for instance,
no.
If you
this applies to anyone. Like you can apply it however the fuck you want, because there is no. First of all, you'd think that a law can't work retroactively. Like you can't be charged for something that you've done before the law was even created.
Right.
And yet, here it's exactly how it works. So you can have a post inviting people to a protest like 10 years ago, and they would see it and they would think that, well, this person is a danger because they might do it again. And yeah, they might actually throw you in jail for that.
Okay. So I do want to repeat my disclaimer that I started out the video with. I asked, do we want to do no video? and
come on, if you do a no video, like changed voice, anything, how many Russian people do you know? How long will it take for the KGB to go through the whole list? And if you think that they can't reach you, you are wrong. Maybe I don't know.
I hope you'll be safe. But I also do appreciate you being here. I think there is value. If you feel safe enough, then that's what I'll trust. Like, I'm not gonna be like use my American brain and be like, imagine just KGB doing headshots through open window
it's not about whether you feel safe or not, because like you don't. Right. You don't. But at this point, it's about letting people know what's happening and what's happening here.
Yeah.
Also, because most people, they have no idea what's happening here, and a lot of things are happening, and it's pretty important because it's a whole big chunk of the earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So let's go to like more like as far as like the war goes, right? So we have what's going on, the Russian invasion in Ukraine, or as RT might put it, special operations. Yeah, special operations to protect Russian speaking citizens from Nazis. Yeah.
But you understand that they can technically do it anywhere.
Right.
There are Russian-speaking people that aren't even Russian.
That's right.
There is Michael McFaul. They can try to protect him.
Right. That's interesting. No, that's interesting. There's a guy that I work with, and he is Ukrainian. He gets paid extra by the Air Force because he speaks both Russian and Ukrainian, and he was in Ukraine this past holidays to visit family and ski. He went to a resort up there, and then he was coming out as the headlines were getting crazier and crazier about the Russian army gathering on the border. He comes here and he's like, nobody cares. They're not going to do anything. They do this stuff all the time. It's not going to happen. Yada yada yada, and then it happens.
You know what? I was one of the people who didn't think that it was going to happen.
I think,
and I think we discussed that at some point, and I didn't think because it's something you can't imagine.
Right.
It's something you just can't imagine that it would actually be happening. So yeah, the first week was in a haze.
Yeah, it's like unreal, right? What's up, G? Thanks for joining.
Hey.
But and so there's been an effect, right? And I really admire, like, you know, your perspective, like your because I mean your friends, you know, all your IFLC friends knows that as far as sanctions go, how is this going to affect the common citizen in Russia? So a lot of people reaching out, you know, to you. I know, like, is there anything we can do? Is there? And then your answer has always been pretty much the same. I'll be fine. It's not like I'm in Ukraine, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, you know, things are exploding around me. And you've always had like a very level perspective about it. But I still have to ask, you know, when the sanctions were put on the government, how did you feel when they ramped up? And also, like, can you just tell me your experience with regard to how it's affecting you and your friends and just everyday normal people?
Big difference between how it's affecting everyday normal people and how it's affecting the middle class, because the majority of people here, they're not middle class. They have pretty low income, and they don't speak other languages. They barely travel, and for them not that much has changed. So as long as the prices remain more or less stable, prices for their like everyday groceries mostly, because there is little that they can afford besides groceries. And as long as the prices remain the same, they would defend the actions of the government with their life. Like, not literally with their life, because like that's not what Russian people do. But they will defend. They will say that it doesn't bother me. I don't want to get into that. I trust the government. They know what to do. Everybody's scared of us. That's good. But they don't understand that they can live better. And that's one of the problems, and that's one of the walls that you come face to face with when you're trying to explain to them that there is a way for you to live better. You don't have to live like this. But for some reason, they think that this is the way they have to survive. They don't want to leave. They want to survive. That's something you can't explain. But then there is middle class that is probably the one most affected by sanctions, because by closing Visa and MasterCard, they pretty much eliminated all the ways for people to pay abroad. So if they want to leave, they can't use their money. So they will have to leave their stuff and their money here. And that's pretty much one of the stupidest ideas, I think. Because there is, you get attacked here, and if you go somewhere, you can't use any of your money or anything. And you can't very well come back.
Right.
There is like I've noticed, some prices changed for most products that are made somewhere in like America and Europe. They either disappearing or the prices changed like twice. Because like contact lenses, they used to cost 4,000 for a 90 item pack, and then now they cost 11,000. So it's like
more than
I think it's more than twice as much.
Yeah, almost triple. That's crazy. But so you said something interesting. So we were talking about the poverty class, right? The people, the lowest socioeconomic status people. As long as prices remain stable, right? We're talking about groceries and things like that. But then a lot of them are also farmers, right? And then farming equipment take fuel. How are those prices, like, how I'm assuming that fuel has prices have risen, or have they gone down because they have to sell it at a discount? How does that work over there?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't. I think the fuel became a little more expensive, but not that noticeable. And then you have to remember that not everyone can afford a car here. Yeah, even the farmers and most of the people who are farmers, they have their own like dacha or a village, and they grow stuff to eat. That's what they're doing. Yeah,
and they're
not
using like more
selling
like,
it. They grow stuff for themselves.
got it. And is it, as a
Not the
lot of them
stuff.
still using like beasts of burden and stuff like that? If they're not rich enough to use, big tractors and stuff like that, a lot of them are using a lot of the old school methods that don't require a lot of
Well,
oils.
for smaller like farms, yes.
Yeah.
Like tiny farms,
Right.
like. But bigger farmers, well, I don't think they know how it's gonna hit them yet, because already most major manufacturers have left, and they're not gonna sell nor the machines, neither like parts for the machines. Most people don't understand that yet. They think that it would be super easy to replace that.
Sure.
They think that, yeah, we're just gonna take the factory and we're gonna build our own machines. We're gonna build our own cars. We're gonna do everything ourselves. Because how hard can it be? Well, it's gonna be hard because they have no fucking idea how to do that.
Yeah.
They couldn't have done like they had 20 years. They had actually 30 years to learn how to do that. They didn't.
Right. So
it's not gonna change.
When we talk about like shutting down Visa and MasterCard, I'm assuming, I can make some, like, you're here on the internet, your lights are on, you've eaten, I'm assuming, today. Like, how are these? There's this imagination. There's like this doomsday kind of like thought process when we're talking about when the sanctions were originally thrown down. There was a lot of fear. We saw lines out around the block for food and stuff. But there seems to have been some sort of, like, when we talk about sanctions and how it's crippling the working class, it seems like there's some stability a little bit, right? Yeah. For now.
Again, the question here is maybe not as much the necessities, because the necessities are like a roof over your head and food.
Sure.
That's all you need. But the comfort of living. So if you want something more than like your basic pasta and sugar and potato, bread, you would have to. Well, actually, that's where you're gonna face some problems, because most stores are. I think they have some stuff lying around, like they don't buy it just for one day. Right, they buy it for like a week or a month. So it will take time for the sanctions to actually take hold and to give effect. But how long is it gonna take? I have no idea. I know that with first of all, we do have a local payment system, which is called MIR, which is either world or peace. Same word here. But it works. It maybe is not the perfect choice for most people, and it doesn't work anywhere abroad. But it works here, so you can still pay with your card. And Visa and MasterCard, by the way, they still work here too. It's just that the cards that are made here, they can't be used elsewhere, and vice versa.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So if you go somewhere, you can't pay. But like here, you can use them.
Got it.
And then I don't think that's been like that enough time has passed yet to see the full effect. But well, what makes me happy is that some of the oligarchs and some of the propaganda heads, well, they are feeling the effect because the yachts and the mansions and all of that, they're never gonna see that again. So that's
Right.
pretty good.
Yeah, the ones outside of Russia. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well,
It's interesting.
because I don't know for myself, but most people think that it's because they didn't know that this would happen, because they didn't know that the attack would happen, and they didn't move anything. They didn't get ready for this. They weren't prepared.
Right.
So they gotta be pissed, but I don't know.
Right, right. I wonder how many of them, like, wish, could you sell that estate in the UK or that estate in Japan or wherever, or sell, bring the yachts back or whatever. It seems like a huge logistical nightmare, and I also think I also have to wonder with regard to like showing your hand, if they were even be allowed to. Like, hey, no, you're not allowed to, because if they see all the oligarchs selling their property and bringing, then they'll know we're about to invade. And
Something like that, yeah.
yeah, but okay.
Well, actually, that's something I never thought about. But I don't think that they would be. It's impossible for them to get compensated for that,
Right.
and they're never gonna get it back.
Yeah.
And they know that. So I think for them it was a surprise.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the sanctions. So protests. You talked about protests, especially the 2012 after the election and stuff. But during this war, we saw anti-war peace protests like break out.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the oh yeah, okay. I gotta hydrate. Thanks for spending those points, Ree. When we saw those protests, and I think a lot of us were, I know, I just speak for myself. When you look at what the news says, how Putin operates, right? When we talk about poisoning opposition, and we talk about the ruthlessness and the lack of freedom of press, and what happens when you stand up to him. And yet, even still, the streets were filled in Moscow and St. Petersburg and all around Russia with anti-war protests. And then what naturally followed was cops doing their brutality. Doing what they do, ACAB. And then also, but almost worse, people disappearing, getting arrested. I forget what the last numbers were.
I think it's around 7,000.
Yeah,
I'm not
thousands.
sure. I think 7,000 are detained.
So how do you feel that has affected? Has Putin been effective in quelling anti-war activism?
Well, I'd say that in general, yes, in some way, because if you look at the biggest protests in, let's say, 2018, or before that, when they were sanctioned, when like they were legal, then yeah, they were bigger. There were more people who were ready to take to the streets and show their disagreement. But first of all, the first action that took effect and that actually hurt the whole protest movement was the law that required to inform and get a special like license or agreement to run a protest. Like even though we have this 31st article in the Constitution that allows freedom of assembly. However, yes, we have to inform, and if you are an organizer, if you are organizing the protest and something gets out of control, well, of course you will have to answer for that.
Which deters people from ever wanting to organize, right?
Well, yeah, that was the first thing that hurt strongly. Then during the war, it was not only the Not only that, but COVID, because in
Mm.
2020 and in 2021, people who tried to organize a protest during that time, there was a special sanitary case. They were charged with what, I don't remember what they called it,
Just
but like
violating
protests during COVID, violating the
COVID
sanitary rules.
protocols.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that,
Wow.
and they're still some of them, still in jail or like at home or house arrest.
Sure. Wow. I didn't even think about that. Like kind of using.
Yeah. COVID is it works when it's very scary and it's very terrifying when it has to be. Basically, when the opposition tries to protest COVID, when they have to run a, I don't know, Victory Day parade, no COVID, everyone's healed, like magic.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how it works. And in this particular situation, the first thing, like everyone knew that when you will actually, no one expected that an anti-war protest can be brutally beaten and people can get thrown in jail and detention because it's an anti-war. It's like simple as night and day. It's simple. War is bad.
Yeah.
But apparently, no. That's not how it works. And what happened next? Well, let me gather my thoughts.
Yeah.
That was like solid picketing, because like people start picketing because that's the only form of protest that's still allowed.
Yeah.
And
but now there's a risk to that. Now we're talking about jail time.
They still get arrested. And the most bizarre story that I remember is one man was detained for silent approval of a picket.
Say it again.
Was happening next to him. He was basically standing next to another person who was picketing, and he was detained for silent approval of that.
Wow.
Because, well,
because he didn't stop them or report them, then he gets arrested with them.
I don't know.
Wow.
There's like the level of bizarreness is just beyond my understanding. I can't explain this, and I can explain how this is happening, and people choose to ignore it.
Right.
Because like propaganda people, they exist in their separate reality. None of that is happening. Mm-hmm. They just ignore it. They don't want to talk about it. When you try to approach them to like tell them, you know there's a war going on, they're not, no.
Yeah.
They're just not having any of that.
Tell me if I'm if I have it wrong or not. What I think when I tried to like look at a situation and then I tried to use my own framework, which is going to be obviously a framework from the United States, and I think about like the population here in the United States, the population that thinks like, oh, this war is a false flag, or this war is fake, or what the news is telling you is wrong. They're not a small amount. They're not a small amount by any means. So I don't mean it like that. But they are a fringe. They are like a population that I would say the majority, and when I say the majority, I don't mean like 90%, but at least 60% of the nation will look at that and go, you guys are weirdos, right? So like even in like the Republican Party, most of the Republicans would go, yeah, this is what's happening in Ukraine, for example. But then a very small portion to that, of them would go, no, Putin is a good guy, yada, yada, yada. But from the stories that I read, and then in this talk between you and I right now, am I wrong to think that most of Russia, like the majority of the population, is just like, I'm going to believe everything that's put out from state media, and the war in Ukraine is fake, and Ukraine is has a Nazi government? Is that like the main thought? And you're in the vast minority?
I can't say for sure because we don't have any independent sociology on this matter. But the last data that I've seen is that approximately 67% supports the war. Either the military operation or something like that, or the war, but they support it. And of course, this number is unreliable, but you have to understand that for the people who have been existing for the last, 20 years in this climate, they've been brainwashed this whole time.
Mm.
They didn't have, they didn't need, or they didn't look for independent information.
Right.
They thought that it's enough to turn on like channel 1 in the morning, watch the news, then come back home from work, turn on again channel 1 in the evening, and get the news. They don't understand. Besides, propaganda works on several levels. There is a level for some basic. I don't want to use the word simpletons.
No, but I know what you mean. Yeah. But it makes sense. No, I know exactly what you mean. Just to clarify real quick, there are people, you know what I mean, like maybe not simpletons, but there are people whose lives don't revolve around staying on top of pop culture. Like their lives,
they're like politics doesn't affect me.
Right. Or
right.
I heard one time, and tell me what you think about this, that the interest in politics is a product of privilege, right? And what I mean by that is, like, so let's say I am in abject poverty. When I farm, I don't farm for a ranch to make a ton of money. I farm so I can eat and I don't starve.
Yeah, but you gotta understand that your poverty is partly the responsibility of the government.
Of course, no, yeah, of course, but that person who's farming to survive doesn't have
why
time.
Are you farming to survive? Think about why are you in this situation. What else do you gotta do?
I'm not the farmer. I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying that if I have to worry about my kid surviving to the next day, like protesting or staying on top of what Putin's doing and the oligarchs and what's that group of men? His Kingsmen. I forget this. Starts with an S. I don't know. It's a Russian word. I knew I'd forget. But I should.
Was it a?
No, you know what? Now I'm gonna look it up. But the like
what do you mean? What exactly do you mean?
Worrying about them, worrying about what the elites are and aren't doing, worrying about how the government is affecting me, is like, look, I can't do anything about it. I just gotta not die right now, you know. And
you know what? That was the situation for peasants and working people in the what was it, 1917, and yet because of propaganda and like for this particular class,
mm-hmm.
and because people obviously they most of them didn't know how to read, but people came to them and read to them the proclamations. Like, it's Tsar's fault.
Yeah.
And
you go.
They started thinking about it. So
you said you got to remember.
However,
these are just.
Go ahead. What?
Now I was gonna read off. Hugo wrote in the chat. You got to remember, these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land, the common clay of the New West. You know, morons.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Mouthfeel, thank you for the
again coming back to the people. Propaganda works on several levels,
right?
And the level that is targeting this particular type of people is basic fear. Everybody hates us. We have to make everyone fear us instead.
Right.
And there are Nazis in Ukraine. They're terrible. They're awful. Remember the Nazis in World War II? Mm-hmm. Well, those are the same kind. We gotta save everyone from them. Plus, Ukraine is gonna attack Russia. Obviously, from like the US is helping them, and they're gonna attack Russia. Right. That's happening like tomorrow. We gotta get a head start. Then there is the level of propaganda that's targeting people. Well, people like me, pretty much. It's you can't change anything. Like, no matter what you do, you can't change anything. So like we're all going down. It's all gonna be bad, but like you can't just drop everything. Like you have to be with everyone.
Wow.
Everyone is gonna be up to their necks and shit. You're gonna have to be with them. There's another kind of propaganda. There's probably some kind of propaganda that works on different, like on other types of people, but
Yeah,
these
like
are
the
the two
elites.
that I've noticed so far.
Yeah, no, that makes a
And
lot of sense.
then, aside from the government-controlled like TV and radio, there is also online platforms that also support this same point of view, or they actually translate this same point of view. And most people that I spoke to, if you ask them like, did you watch TV? They'd be like, no, I don't watch TV. I get independent information. But then you see at the list of the independent information that they get in, and it's like informational agencies that are also controlled by government, and they are also dictated what to write.
Mm-hmm. And you also
So
gotta, you also have to
not
be
much
careful
difference.
with independent news too. Like
What?
I said, you also have to be careful with independent news as well,
Yeah,
because
definitely,
just because you're
yes.
independent doesn't mean that you're telling the truth. I think what a lot of
Yeah,
people have is like they don't have the tools by which to like discern how to fact check, because like I said earlier, you're on the internet, you're on right now. People, I'm assuming VPN is very common, right?
well, now it is, yeah.
Yeah, and so now we're like sitting there going, okay, you're getting information. That's just step one. Receive information. Do you have the
Yeah,
skills by which to vet it and use some sort of, yeah. And people don't do that. They just want to hear what they want to hear. So
the thing I've noticed so far that opposition is very optimistic. I know that they have to be, because like that's their life.
right,
Everything for them rides on that,
right,
whether they succeed. Because like they have homes here, and they have their families here, and their families are pretty much held hostage by this government.
mm-hmm.
And they have to be optimistic, because if they're pessimistic, like what are they going to do if they realize, if they tell to themselves that this is not going to work?
Right.
For them, that's important. I understand. I just
It's
I
important for
don't
the
see
support
the
too, right?
situation as I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel in this particular case.
Right.
They do, and I want to believe them, but it's just not happening because.
Well, I mean,
And
so check
then
out this headline.
what?
So check out this headline here. Let me throw this on here real quick, and we'll watch that video as well. That's up on the screen. But so this is New York Times. Faced with Russian pressure, Russians rally around Putin, poll shows. So Vladimir Putin approval ratings have reached levels unseen in years, according to an independent poll released Thursday. 83% of Russians.
Was that independent poll by any chance held by Levada Center?
Let's see.
Because we have two main sources of
Levada.
polls. Yep.
Okay, so this is something that's not.
They're not
reliable.
entirely independent. It's really hard to say, and plus the thing that often is pointed out by the opposition, by the way, they're holding screens, and they often point out that the question that they pose in this polls is whether you support or do not support the special operation. They're not asking you whether you're supporting the war, whether you're supporting the murder. They're not showing you photos of what's happened, like in Bucha, and asking, do you support that? That's very different. And these people, they have no idea that they do know sometimes that it's happening, but they think that it's happening because evil Ukrainian forces are killing their own people to frame Russia. And that somehow that works for them, because apparently that's what they expect from a government elected by people.
Yeah. No, wow, that is super smart. I like that.
I don't.
I gotta choose my words very carefully. I don't like it, but I find it like, I'm like, wow, like, I did not see that. Like, it's like asking, oh, what do you think about protecting Russian speaking people in Ukraine from being
Yeah,
murdered? Like,
exactly.
oh, I don't want that to
Yeah,
happen. So
good,
you,
go
yeah,
protect them. But you have to know that this has happened before, and it's not the first time this is happening. And I'm I can't support protecting Russian-speaking people like anywhere, because if they're in that country particular, then they chose to be there. If they don't like it there, they can come back here.
right.
You can create the housing for them. You can give them passports. You can make it easy for them to come back here. Or here's a crazy idea: you can make the country attractive enough so they would want to come back.
Right. Right.
But no, that clearly is not our way.
I didn't have this question. So Mouthfeel on Twitch said it's not about looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. It's finding out where the light should be coming from, coming through, and punching your way through to that light. It's fighting for what's there.
Well, you know what? This is a thing that people from democratic societies talk about a lot. But you have to understand one thing. First of all, when most people hold people in Russia accountable for the actions of the government, what they don't understand is that we haven't had a free election since, oh, Jesus.
Ever?
I want to say 2000.
Yeah.
And this situation was cultivated. It was carefully cultivated. And most of us didn't know that this was happening because there is no precedent of that. So this is quite a unique situation for us, at least. Because in the year 2000, I was like 12, so couldn't exactly notice. But in my life, I never voted for Putin or United Russia.
Mhm.
And this situation, they pretty much elected themselves. They don't. They are not accountable. They don't have any responsibility to people. These people didn't elect them, and we don't have elections for like mayors or governors. This is a whole different society. And when people protest here, well, they are risking. I'm not sure that they're risking more than when they protest in America, because obviously I've never been to a protest in America. But well, it's pretty brutal, and they can be thrown in jail. Their families can suffer. This can, if you're a political activist, and I don't mean like my level of activism, but like Navalny, for instance, right? It's not just that he was poisoned. It's that his brother had to go to jail. His whole family, of course, got affected by this. Or like take Nemtsov, who got shot. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here, and it's really hard to punch your way to the light in this situation, and it's probably also not for everyone. Like, I personally can judge people who they knowingly choose to stay home, because not everyone can do what everyone else can do. Like, not everyone can even run from the police, because
They don't want that.
it's not that easy.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is a lot of them.
I'll say this much, who knows what would happen in reality. If I was ever faced with needing to fight, I hear stories a lot about, like, the 60s civil rights movement in the United States, and people who stayed in places like Mississippi and Georgia and fought knowing that people could show up to your house and kill you, knowing that law enforcement was corrupt. And I say the same thing every time I watch these movies. I'm like, I would have fucking left. Fuck the South. I would have been like, I'm out. But I think that as I know, many people in Russia have found out that just leaving is not always an option.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, okay, I don't have anywhere to go. Look at
Well, the first problem is actually most people can't afford to leave.
right, exactly. It's
Then the
definitely a
borders
class
are
thing.
closed,
Right.
and they can't afford it even more.
Yeah, I think.
And then if they leave, they are not. There is no country that says like, oh my God, yeah, we see you. You can come here, and we'll let you stay, unless you're like a very, very, very high level popular activist.
Right. We saw that in a short documentary. I linked it in the Discord, where we watched Ukrainians and Russians going through Mexico to because you have to go to a port of entry to request asylum in the United States, and the Ukrainians were all getting processed through, while the Russians were stuck in Mexico waiting.
Sure, exactly, because like from what I've heard, most Ukrainians have a refugee status, and doesn't it allow them to stay as long as the war is going on?
Yeah, no, that's
And
what I mean.
then they would have to return. So for Russians, it's different. They
Right.
obviously asking for an asylum.
Right.
So that's different.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say is that Ukrainians can get asylum, but Russians can't. So it kind of goes back to my
So
point.
they can get refuge. It's different status.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So they relying on the fact that they would leave eventually.
Right.
And with Russians, they understand that they're probably never gonna leave.
Right.
So maybe that's the problem. Plus, many people, they don't have reasons, actually, because they I think most of them, they actually those people who had it pretty well, and they never went to any protests, and they never even spoke out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like this situation with Marina Sanikova, the First Channel editor, I think, who got hired in Germany by some media, and then that caused Ukrainians in Germany right now to protest against that, because she worked for propaganda for years, and now she like switched sides, and she got a cozy job. But like that doesn't according to the Ukrainians, that doesn't undo the years of damage that she's done.
Right.
So
interesting. I do want to watch this video real quick, and kind of like show the juxtaposition between like how Russians talk about like what's happening in Ukraine. And then of course it'll show like how Ukrainian will talk about it after the video. And if you want to say anything or interrupt or anything like that, just let me know. I'll pause it. You can say, and then looking at what you said, light of the tunnel, no light of the tunnel, and then you could just chew on this while we watch the video. Somebody out there who is wanting to get involved, right? Just if by some chance they see this video and somebody in Moscow, St. Petersburg, wherever, wants to get involved, after this video, let me know what you think about if it's worth it, if you think it's worth it, and how they might start if they wanted to. But let's play this real quick.
Или нет? Эскалация.
Да.
Как вы думаете, возможна война или нет?
Да, я думаю, нет. Это уже длится, знаете, сколько пугает Украину.
Ну да, уже несколько.
Да, это просто психологическая атака.
Ну, если будет нужно, то может.
Одобряете ли вы введение войск?
Одобряю. Очень агрессивно со стороны Украины себя ведет.
А Россия
Поэтому
не ведет себя агрессивно также?
я считаю, что нет. А какая агрессия с нашей стороны? Все сделано по закону.
Крым отжали.
Как это
Донбасс?
отжали? Крым испокон веков был русский и будет русский.
То есть вы считаете, все-таки это Украина ведет агрессию, а мы защищаемся?
Естественно, им не понравилось это, но... Извините, хотели отделиться, отделили.
Да. Потому що війська стягнули такі 114 чи скільки тисяч, і вся техніка. І він не остановиться, той дебіл. Він буде, нас здівався всю життя і буде здіватися. Він не може без України. Це як п'явка, яка присосалася і хоче крові. Що йому треба? Хай свою Сибір освоює. Он скільки земель. Так нет, лізе сюди.
А что ему здесь надо, по-вашему?
Йому, щоб НАТО не було рядом, мабуть. І хоч НАТО, воно, Литва, Естонія чи хто там біля їх, так то його не хвилює, йому треба Україна. Ви розумієте, це якась болезнь у людини. Ненормальный.
Мы нет. Потому что у нас все есть, а у них ничего нет. Америка не пойдет против России никогда, я думаю. Пока Путин у власти,
Может ли Путин ввести в Украину войска?
я думаю, пока нет. Я думаю, нет.
Зачем тогда на границе с Украиной, вот со спутников кадры о том, что наши войска...
Я думаю, нет. Это просто, правильно, не вон в новостях все говорят, что это просто наши территории, они как учения или как там они свои эти производят. И пока Путин у нас при власти, я думаю, беспокоиться не о чем.
Я думаю, що Путін
That matches what you were saying earlier, where like a lot of people are like they value the fact that people are afraid of us and they won't dare and
Yeah, exactly. That's a very propaganda-filled brain because he said that we have everything and they have nothing,
right.
and that's not true. We have actually nothing, and we'll see that pretty soon.
Yeah. I find it interesting how when you were talking about like how most people are in poverty, right, and the middle class is actually pretty small. Like, is that not obvious to the common citizen?
See, I think that the problem is that they used to live in this condition. They've never seen anything else, and they think like the most used argument is, do you want it to be like in the 90s? And the 90s were a really difficult time for most people because there was no middle class whatsoever, and there was a lot of organized crime, and people were really, really poor. Like, that's the level of poor that well, I hope no one is familiar with here, but that's like when you don't have stuff to eat, like when you don't know where your next meal is coming from,
right,
or ever at all.
Yeah.
So most people were really dirt poor, and this is one of the main propaganda items that you don't want to repeat the 90s. And people, they really think that it's what they have now is better somehow, even
Right.
though that it's not. If you look like sometimes we'll watch some videos from well, they're not travel bloggers, but well, they travel through Russia and they show some regions, farther regions where you won't actually go most of the time,
Sure.
like villages, some really, really far regions. People are really poor. They have their apartments look like something that's been bombed, or they have this really old wooden houses. Like you remember that half destroyed house by fire?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's how they live.
Wow. Wow.
And they have nothing. Like, they really have nothing, and they have no desire to. Well, they probably want to live different. I don't know, but their main point is like, I want to live out my days in peace. I just want to survive.
Right.
I never had.
They're defeated.
Why would I start having things now? And for some, it's even worse because they're like, I don't have anything. Now you all are gonna have nothing. That's great.
And especially when you look at the people who are in that very small middle class who think this is the best it's ever been, and I can't go backwards, and sorry for everyone else, but it's that part of that out of sight, out of mind kind of situation that happens everywhere, right? It happens globally. It happens in people's own backyards where you can see small little suburban neighborhoods, and then city planning will plant just the right amount of trees, and they put like the shopping centers in the opposite direction, and there's people who live in such a way and not even see the abject poverty that's 2 blocks away, let alone across a giant continent like Russia, where you might have the type of poverty that doesn't exist in most developed countries, or
I think that it does exist. I just think that
not on the scale, right?
Yeah, maybe not on the same scale, and like people again ignore it. But
You're right.
then
You're right.
there is another issue here, that Russia is really big and really rich, potentially rich country. But the riches are kind of very, very interestingly located around Moscow. So even looking at the second largest city, St. Petersburg, it has a lot of issues. A lot of issues that could be easily fixed if just, people who are supposed to be fixing them didn't steal the money.
Right. Yeah.
But then when you try to bring that up, when you try to discuss it with people, they say that, well, at least these have stolen enough. If you bring in someone new, he's gonna start stealing.
Right.
That's like something that you can't beat through. You need an axe probably to get to them, to get through to them.
Yeah.
And that's impossible. That I think that in a way that's the responsibility of propaganda, and that's what the propaganda has done. It has convinced people that it can be better, and they shouldn't even try.
Yeah.
Because everyone is crooked, and everyone is gonna be stealing, and there's like no way out.
So Yugoslav asks, is it true that in Siberia the Communist Party is starting to see some minor increases in popularity since they're so isolated from Moscow?
The Communist Party in Russia is just the same United Russia. Every party that is represented somehow in Duma in Russia is United Russia with different masks. They don't have any opposition. They have the pocket opposition. But in general, you could say that many people are leaning towards communism because they are stupid and naive. And they remember the Soviet Union. Either they don't remember the Soviet Union, or they remember the Soviet Union very differently. And
is that what the modern
if they wanted the Soviet Union, well, they pretty much have it right now. The country is closed. No one can get in. Almost no one can get out. There is you never know when they can come for you. You're not supposed to speak out against government. You don't have elections. That's pretty much what we used to have.
Mm-hmm. I'm not super read up on any of the parties, let alone the Russian Communist Party, but this modern Communist Party, is that their goals? Is that for real?
No, they
what
have
they
no
want?
goals. There is not a single party that isn't United Russia that has any ambition right now.
They were pretty
they're
vocal
not
against
supposed
this
to
war,
have
though.
ambition.
They're-
They exist exclusively to fill spaces. Like they can't vote against anything properly. They just exist.
So they were the only party I was reading a couple weeks ago that actually spoke out against the war. However, was for the annexation of the Donbass.
Crimea. Donbass.
Well, yeah, the Donbass republics, and identifying them as
those are not republics.
Right. But the Communist Party.
Those are Donetsk and Lugansk.
Right. They Oh, you're saying like the names of the actual republics. Is that what you're saying?
No. Those are Ukrainian regions.
Oh no, 100%. What I'm saying is that
Donetsk Oblast and Lugansk Oblast.
they but the Communist Party is the
Self-proclaimed.
ones who supported Putin calling them independent republics. But that they did speak out against invasion. That means
There is no paradox here because, well, first of all, Communist Party has it does seem like it's pretty popular, but it is pretty popular because the opposition voted for the communists. They voted against United Russia, and most of the people voted for communists. And that's the story of success. And yeah, again, we come back to the fact that probably most politicians, most powers, they didn't know that the invasion would happen, and they didn't know the size of this invasion, because originally the idea, at least the idea that was presented to them, was that Russian military forces would defend the republics, self-proclaimed republics, in the like with the borders. With the borders of both regions, but they didn't control the regions, whole regions. They controlled only parts of them. So when they invaded, at first it really seemed like they're going to be trying to get the remaining pieces of this land. But then they went further. They went all the way to like Kharkov, Kiev, other places, and then, well, suddenly you understood, like you realized that they're not trying to protect anything. They're not trying to even bite off these pieces of land. They're just trying to invade Ukraine. And then within a week, the program changed a few times. It was like at first they were protecting people in Donetsk and Lugansk. Then they wanted to destroy the Ukrainian military infrastructure and like fight the Nazis that they they made up.
right.
Then they wanted Kiev at some point, I believe. They couldn't get it, and then they changed the narrative. And well, every time they kept saying that it's all happening according to the plan. Every time they failed, they kept saying like, we're winning. It's all good. We're winning. We are doing what we planned to do. It's just the plan changed according to the things that were happening. It's kind of like the joke about arguing with religious people.
Oh, right.
It's like playing chess with a pigeon. Yeah.
Right.
The pigeon would sit on the board and then fly away to tell every one of their friends that they're winning.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Yeah, they failed, they fucked up everything, and then they just decided to, which is gonna say that this was the plan.
Got it. So what we did wanted to close up with was, unless you wanted to talk about other things, and we can talk all day. I'm good with it. But but I know it's late for you.
Well, it's not that late actually.
Okay, well we can keep talking. I know that at one point, right, 2012, you had a more a more optimistic view on things, and it's time to fight, and you're gonna get out there. Obviously, some of the tone of this talk is, hey, I don't know, right? It seems a little bit more unsure of the future, right? Even still, what would you tell somebody today, right? That if they want to get into activism, would you suggest it? And where do they start if so?
I mean, it's never too late, I guess. At some points, I wake up and I feel like, oh my God, it's too late. But I don't think that it's ever too late to at least get more information. But my suggestion is, I can't and I legally can't tell people to go take to the streets and protest, but I can tell them to not only learn the available information themselves, but spread it, talk to everyone, and if they have an opportunity to change someone's point of view, they should do it. And it's difficult, and there is really not much, or at least it seems like there is not much we can do right now. But after this is all gonna be this is all eventually gonna be over, and after that there will be still a country, and there will still be people, and we'll have to build something new, I guess.
Right.
So
getting involved in their communities and things like that, right? I mean,
there is no, I can't say that there is a community right now, because most of them opposition leaders, they fled, and for good reasons.
sure.
They literally couldn't stay here. And well, there are movements, there are anti-war movements here, so you could seek those out, but like be careful if you do that. And maybe for everyone, it's up to them what they're ready to do, what they're prepared to do. Because like some people are probably ready to really go to the streets and fight the police and do that, and some people are maybe ready to just talk to the closest person to them. And either way, it's worth it. Yes.
What about in general? Like, where do you see? What's the way forward? Like, what do you think is where do people go from here? I mean, if Putin is going to corrupt the polls every time, if you have someone like Navalny, who couldn't successfully mobilize against Putin, what do you think you go from here?
Well, see that he couldn't mobilize. He could mobilize people. It's just that it's apparently not enough people. I guess not enough people were mobilized because they didn't see the bigger picture, or they disagreed with him in particular, or they just were scared. And this was a conversation that I think the hope before that was that when something really, really big, really serious happens, people will finally go to the streets. They will finally take action. Like they will show that they have something to say about it. But it seems like the big things are happening and people are nowhere to be found. So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I have a few theories for after Putin's rule is over, but like for now, for the coming years, if he gets out of this particular war, it's going to be really dark times. We're talking like 1937, and I don't know.
Wow.
Or maybe it could get resolved faster. It could get resolved slower. He could just, we can just wake up tomorrow and look at the news and boom, he's dead. That could happen.
Right. And then you also have to wonder.
People are hoping.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mean, I'll say it. I hope Putin dies tomorrow. Right. I'm safe to say. You don't have to say anything. But
okay.
but there's still. Even if that happens, like there's no surety that that the person who replaces him is not going to be the same or even worse, right?
Yeah, never.
Right.
But like I think I brought up this example a while ago. Like we've tried this brand of shit. We might try the next brand, and it's gonna be shit too.
Sure.
But at least it's gonna be different shit.
Right.
So we won't know until we find out.
Right. You got to.
So like I'm all for trying a new brand of shit.
Yeah.
Change is important. Like that's the most important thing. The worst thing that happened to Russia is lack of this change.
Right.
So
No.
far, that's the thing that hurts the most.
Mm. Yeah,
Because the people are not even used to seeing new faces.
Mm.
They there is this question like, who if not Putin? And the answer is like anyone.
anyone.
Literally anyone. Take
Right.
anyone off the street, put a cat there.
Yeah.
A cat would do less damage.
So it's funny because like so as far as like leftism goes, you know, for me personally, and I know that you don't espouse like, you know, non-capitalist stuff, which is fine. But it's we don't have to get that here. Ben's not here. You're good.
Well, we can eventually get into that because my opinions changed.
Mhm. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. And mine too. That's why I'm constantly flowing, and that's why I'm kind of bringing this up now. Is I espouse the brand, you know, democratic socialist, right? And as a democratic socialist, I've read lots and lots of critiques on them from people who are like, you can't vote your way out of a corrupt system. You can't expect people in power to give up their power through the vote. And so when I read up and I go, this is what I'd like, it does sound, at first it can sound unrealistic and idealistic. And I gotta say, I'm not gonna defend myself. I'm looking at Russia and I imagine somebody being a democratic anything and saying, this is why sometimes the end result is almost inevitably violent revolution. Because if every vote is corrupted, if every, like, did Navalny would lose? Maybe he fucking didn't. And then but we would never
wasn't
know.
actually in the election, so.
But I mean, wasn't there something where he was fighting for, and then it's like, then he's, you know, I mean, what happened with that movement, right? There was a movement that really kind of defunct at this point.
Well, no, it's not, because his team, the anti-corruption fund, they just abroad, and they have these streams and they bring information to people. They have their own media now, and they're doing what they can. It's really difficult to do from abroad, but they couldn't stay here, and I understand why, and I'm not judging them.
That's fair.
It's just that it's really difficult.
Yeah,
it complicates things, and that was the goal. The goal was never to, well, it wasn't, for the most part, it wasn't to kill people or to throw them in jail. It's to force them to leave. Like, if you don't like things, get the fuck out.
Right.
That's the goal.
Right. That's fair. So then actually I'll just ask you straight directly. Do you think that what's happening with Russia can be fixed through you know, just persistent enough democracy?
I can't say for sure because well, sometimes I think in history there was never a situation where something of this size, of this strength, could be resolved peacefully, and at least some victims. There will have to be at least some victims, in my opinion. But I don't know how. I don't know if the vote might work, because, well, we don't have any. Maybe if tomorrow all the people woke up and they decided to be honest and they decided that they don't have to serve the system, maybe then. But I'm not sure. Also, I'm not exactly supporting any revolution or civil war because, well, the country has been through a civil war and it only led us to 70 years of communism, which is partly, like, it's in a way, these 70 years are responsible for what happened today. Because, well, Putin is a product of Soviet Union.
That's fair. I mean, he was a big KGB dude, right?
And he's like idolizing Stalin, so.
Right. Okay.
That's
Uh,
never a good sign. I mean, technically, people should have started to get worried when he started to say that Stalin was an effective manager.
hmm, okay.
But
Well,
no.
how are you on time?
Pretty fine.
Okay. If you want to, and if you're prepared to talk about it, if not, we can do this again. Next week or whatever. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I know we BS a lot in the mod chat and stuff, but I don't think that we've ever actually had to let's sit and like talk seriously about this. And you have a lot of good information to share. If you have
I
time,
keep trying to tell you'll never listen.
If everybody knows, just remember, Polly's right, and if you don't think so, just wait and you'll realize.
Good point.
This
Yeah.
is true. This is true. What about
Also, there's something people named Ben should learn.
I can't wait till Ben watches this. Yes. I kind of want to change gears a little bit then, since we do have some time. And I'd like to hear about your experience as a Black woman in Russia, which is
It sucks.
the end. It sucks. Because
Remember how in the beginning of the stream I told you about the time that I was arguing with the chairwoman of the committee during the election?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's when a really old, senile woman called me foreign. She actually called me an agent of State Department of the USA. Because she heard some propaganda and she saw a Black person and she was like, "Well, that's America right here."
That's right. Wow. I think it's interesting. So we were doing a show the other day, a couple weeks ago. I don't know. Time has no meaning.
At some point.
Yeah, about Uyghurs, right? And so you look at the ethnic, the diversity in ethnicities within Russia. I've done 6 months in Kyrgyzstan. Lots of its own nation, but lots of Russians are there. USSR and all that. And I just find that whole region to be extremely diverse. And even within the Russian Federation today, very diverse from the western border all the way to the eastern border. All shapes, colors, sizes in Russia. And yet, if you watch media and you watch movies and you think, what is a Russian? They only all look like Putin. And so,
no one looks like Putin because he looks like a troll.
Right. But
the other day, I saw a tweet with medieval pictures of Satan, and they all look like him.
It's not an accident.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, Yugoslav says something like 158 lingo groups, but they only focus on Slavs. Yeah. How does that play out? Being not Caucasian, because you're half, right?
I'm 25% Ukrainian. I'm half Black, and I'm a little bit Russian, but there is something mixed in with the Russian part.
Got it. Okay. All right. And so how does that play out? Obviously, I'd imagine if it's anything like most places, you're safer in a city, right? In a city environment that's going to be naturally more diverse anyway. But in general, how does that work for you?
Well, in 2000s, you weren't really safer in the city because there was a lot of skinheads, and they killed a lot of people. So you pretty much had to stay close to home.
Wait,
and not go anywhere. There were particular spots.
Are you telling me Russia has a Nazi problem?
Well, interesting, right?
Weird.
Yeah, kind of strange thing. But yeah, it's never gone away. Like we have different shapes and types of racism. There is the institutionalized racism, that is like systematic racism that is targeted at people from Caucasus. So like when people say Caucasian here, they think like, yeah, people
that makes sense.
yeah, from so yeah, there is a lot of situation where people are renting places and they say like, we rent to Slavic families only, or like Slavic people only. Of course, I've encountered problems like that's not the hairstyle we allow in this place, or something like that, like braids and dreadlocks and stuff. Yeah, and of course you often encounter people who are just aggressive. Whether you like walk on the streets, like the most recent example, I remember we were walking. It was night, and there was a guy on the other side of the street. Somehow, from the other side of the streets, he saw that I'm half black, and he started yelling obscene things. We just left. It's like, you don't want to get into this. And yeah, there are always situations in which you feel targeted. There are weird situations like you don't know how to react even, because when I was in university, my one of my professors asked me like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Here." He's like, "But where are you from?" And I'm like, "Why aren't you asking anyone else where they from? What's up here?" Like. I of course reported him to the dean.
Of course.
Because.
And you were born in Russia. You're Russian born, right?
Well, yeah. I'm lucky that way. We have like there are communities of mixed people here, and I mean, some of them are. Because of their Russian upbringing, they don't understand the severity of the problem, and they refuse to accept the severity of the problem. Because maybe they feel safer that way. I don't know. Maybe they feel more accepted that way. But there is always this issue when you're not sure whether something is happening because of your skin or because of any other reason.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, just given how...
And of course, you know, like with the representation, you got none.
Right.
With the sanctions, like you got none of the products that you normally would use. Like, yeah.
Like hair
and
stuff.
One time I was at Sephora and I asked the woman for like facial powder for my skin tone, and she was like, yeah, I'm gonna go look. And she left and she never came back. And I know the bitch never came back because she didn't have anything, but she could have told me.
Right. Wow, that's funny. Jesus. So does this like, are there any movements like that? Like, are there any kind of like...
No, because like starting this movement, I would really like to start a kind of movement like that, but starting this movement, it puts a target on your back.
Right.
Like, you are not walking out of this.
Yeah.
Because people here are not ready to accept the fact that multicultural country means really multicultural country.
Right.
Country that consists of different people of different ethnicity means that they would all be equally represented. And you know that I'm not even sure that white blonde people are a majority here, because like we have a lot of regions. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, there is this problem, and well, it's enough to actually look at any. There is this biggest Russian social network of Kontakte, and if you look at any commands at any in any situation like where something somehow there is a conversation about either black people or like any kind of non-white people, there is always some racist command.
Oh,
The comics related groups, I just quit all of them because I can't handle this shit.
Right.
There's too much of that.
right.
There's every time there's N words. There is a lot of rude shit written. It's just intolerable.
So when you
And
look,
like you can report this, of course, but it never
it's
works.
too many. Yeah, it's too many. I mean, and then that one account, maybe something happens, maybe not, but nothing. It's not like it changes.
No,
the
no.
overall
You know,
environment.
this country is built around the understanding that a straight middle-aged white man knows best
That's right.
what everyone else should do.
That's right. Well, it's yeah. It actually we're watching through an old reality TV show called Black White, and it's super cringe. And there's a dude on there named Bruno that is exactly that, right? It's a middle-aged white guy who's spending each episode like explaining
Telling everyone how to react to everything.
exactly that. I don't know if you've seen any of that.
That's every man I've met here.
Yeah, so you should check out. Well, I'm gonna upload the second episode today, but if you don't know the premise, the family, paints himself black, does blackface, and then lives as a black person, and then that's the reality show. That's the reality TV show, and yet this dude, he'll go and he, like what you just said, to a T, to like comically to a T, where he's like,
What
well, I'll
people
tell you what.
online are doing, like when they use a profile pic of a black person and then pretend to be one.
The whole show is offensive. It really is offensive. But it's also like it also is kind of eye opening to see how like how some people might not think that they are. Hey, thanks most average gamer. That speaks to me.
Yay!
That speaks to me.
That's a new follower.
But you watch this individual and he'll go, watch. When someone calls me the N-word on this show, they don't censor it. They'll censor fuck, but they don't censor the N-word, which I found very interesting. But he'll go and go, you just gotta let it roll off your back. This is how you're supposed to react to this stuff. And if you go in there and just blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, exactly what you're saying is that.
You have no idea how many times white people told me how to react to this.
Yes, yeah, because
they're like, that's not offensive. You don't understand it. But like, we didn't have slavery here, so why are you so upset about it?
Right. Yeah. No. 100%. There's this. So question for you. Because I can't imagine. We sit there and we go, okay. So I live in the United States. Obviously, racism is still a big problem here, and there's all sorts of movements going forward to try to get people to be better, right? I mean, they're called SJWs and whatever else, but not just for race, for all sorts of marginalized communities, right? And you kind of push to end slurs and highlight systemic barriers, highlight class, barriers to class mobility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything like that in Russia? Is there any kind of not just movement, officially, I don't mean organizations, but are citizens hey, understand what it means to be a marginalized community here? Does that exist in Russia?
There are there are some people who would say these things,
but they don't.
I'm one of them.
Oh, yeah.
But most people just prefer to not get involved because online, if you face these situations, you will probably just get into a big fight, and you will say something that will get you banned. But that's not scary online. When it happens in real life, well, most people would just look away. Because I was in an argument once. I stood in line at the post office, and two women behind me were they were using slurs and shit, and they were discussing some kind of a problem. I turned around to them and told you, could you keep your racism away from here, and they just got into it.
Wow.
First they started telling me that, like, why are you listening? Because they were loud, obviously, and they stood right behind me.
Yeah.
Then they started attacking me. Then they started telling me to go back to Africa. That's
And a lot of these protections don't
not
exist
how it
there,
works
right?
here.
Like you were saying,
What?
like a lot of the protections don't exist, right? So like you were talking about rentals and how they'll say they only rent to Slavic people. That's not illegal in Russia. I mean, they're legally allowed to do that.
That is not illegal. I mean, how can it be illegal if there is like, look at the laws, like anti-LGBT laws.
Oh, right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
why would this be illegal?
Right. Yeah, it's just mind blowing because it's like, yes, there are problems here. Yes, clearly it could be worse. But
Could be Russia.
What they have to could be Russia. But like,
I mean, if you'd let the Trump stay, that probably would have been Russia.
Right, and that's why it's still scary to me hearing this sort of talk that's ramping up. Kind of off topic, but the kind of talk that I'm already hearing with regard to it doesn't matter, and Biden's just the same, and this is why voting blue no matter what is like. I'm like if I had to choose incremental change, hell, fuck incremental change. If I had to choose incremental regression, I can even admit that there's things that are happening bad, that we are going backwards. Incremental regression versus sprinting backwards. You know what I mean? If I had to choose, I'm gonna choose incrementally, getting worse versus, and it's
again,
yeah.
brands of shit. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't be so naive to say like, oh, but voting Democrat is making things better. Like, okay, even if not. Yeah. So anyways, in the United States, I feel like racist people have to start like every day because of our progress. They're having to get more and more clever, right? So they can never, ever in the United States say, you're not, this rental, you can't be here if you're black. What they have to do is figure out the median income of people of color and then price them out. And then find other ways to figure out ways to, and these are the sort of systems that become more and more invisible. So those are almost, in a way, more dangerous because it's like when you call them out, you go, I didn't say black people can't be here.
Yeah, but you can't call them out.
Yeah.
See, there is no reason, there is no force behind you that would support you when you call them out.
That's right.
It's just you.
Right. But
I
don't know which way is worse.
Wait for them to leave home at night and do something about it. But that's
Sketchy Got Hands in the chat says, yep, that's what's happening with me when I was apartment hunting. Ree's on the Twitch side. Yeah, but where are you from? I never get asked that as a whitey, no matter where I am as a whitey.
exactly. See, and like you could be sitting there in that room and like speaking flawless English and not speaking not a single word of Russian.
Right.
And he would still ask me.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting. So there's no sort of protections. So
no, literally none. Even the police, like you have to have a law behind you, some kind of a law, and there is one, but it's not used as you'd expect it to be used. You can't just sue people for calling you the N-word,
right?
Because they think that they know whether it's offensive or not.
Right. I mean, I will say
like,
that you can't do that here
You can tell
either.
them that you're religious and wait for them to attack you based on that. That could work.
Yeah.
But only if you're Orthodox.
Right. Yeah. Jeez. I'll ask. So, again, acknowledging that not everybody has the opportunity to move, not everybody has the means to move. I don't mean this in a classist way.
And some people don't want to move.
So that's it. That's my my curiosity. Let's say you have the means to move, right? We're not in a situation pre Ukraine war where it wasn't impossible to go somewhere else. If you are a especially if you add on to it, right? So not only a black person, but a black queer person who's not orthodox. Like, you know what I mean? We could just keep adding like to the deal. Why does anybody ever want to stay? Like, how is there not a mass exodus of people on the borders trying to get the fuck out of there?
I think that many of the people, like a lot of people here, have things to lose, have things they worked for, have their jobs, have their families. And I know a lot of people who they pretty much were fine here, and they probably would have been fine here if they stayed. But they left out of fear. Like in the first days of war, they dropped everything and they left. There are people who are really hoping that things would improve.
Right.
Because something of something that big, it historically and logically, it's supposed to bring a lot of change. It's supposed to bring fundamental change, and some people are like theorizing. They kind of hoping that maybe in the future the country will be separated into smaller parts.
Oh wow!
Or like it wouldn't keep on existing in the same way like it does now. Maybe it would. Regions will get more freedom from the center. But there are hopes. There are ideas. Some people just believe that things are going to get better, and maybe they believe that during this change they would improve their own standing. Because, well, for some people, yeah, it's quite possible.
Right.
Well, for black people, I don't know. It's that part when if you belong to some kind of movement, or if you participate in even in protest, somehow you being there still affects the whole movement, because there would be people who would look at you and think, I told you they're American agents. Right. Just like that old woman.
Right.
Yeah, so there is no sure way to tell what are you going to be able to do if the situation changes, and depending on how it changes.
For sure.
So, but I do believe that some people even actually just like being here. They used to live in here, and there are also people who have no idea how to live anywhere else.
Right.
Because you have to remember that they can't fit in anywhere. These are the people who are used to living in Russia. They're used to living within Russian laws, within Russian social. So it would be very different and very difficult for them to move to, let's say, like America or Europe. They move to America, they can't use the N-word ever.
Right.
That's it for them. They can do that.
Yeah.
Or they move to Europe and they have to adjust. They have to like pay for. They used to bribe a lot. Like there is very little that you can do without bribes.
Really?
Most people can't properly get into university without a bribe. I did twice. What?
Yeah, but you're poly. And
you're reminding everyone that I'm right and smart.
Yeah.
But to get a driving license, you have to bribe. So they're not used to doing things any other way.
This is like just a normal like it's like tipping in the United States. This is Russia and bribes.
Yeah.
If
Like,
you expect to get
you want to open a business,
bribe.
Here's a tip for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
with that, also another factor is the Russophobia, which is a word definitely invented by Russia today.
What is it again? Say it again.
Russophobia.
Oh, Russophobia. Okay,
Like,
got it.
Yeah, the phobia of Russia.
Yeah.
It's a word definitely invented by Russia today, and it started. It's been used for the last few years, and that has been like we might have missed it, but that was the basis of this propaganda. Like the West hates Russians. People in the West hate Russians. If you're Russian and you go somewhere, they're gonna hate you. And a lot of people they read and they buy into this, and they think that, okay, I'm gonna leave my cozy home here. Maybe it's not perfect, but I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go to, like, let's say Germany, and they're gonna look at me and say, I know you're Russian. Get the fuck out. Or like, we're not gonna serve you anything.
Which is funny because it's when you look at the we're gonna move back to Washington State, and in Washington State there are like very large Moldovan, Russian, Ukrainian communities, and as far as I can tell, my neighbor was Moldovan, and I'd always ask him these sort of questions. I've never seen any kind of like anti Eastern European, East Bloc country kind of like racism. Now, what I will say is, what is probably a legitimate concern is the way that like WASP, evangelical, conservative, types, they are quick to turn, and we saw it with Russia, like Russian American restaurants that probably aren't even run by a Russian, but they're getting rocks thrown through their windows. Like there is a valid concern that I would say that if for some reason, like imagine being Asian, not just Japanese, Asian during after Pearl Harbor, during the internment, it was very common. You hear it all the time, like horrible enough alone, what we did to Japanese Americans, but just adding salt to the wound to know that it wasn't even just Japanese Americans. Like the standard white Americans are so fucking dumb that they were locking up any Asian that they couldn't tell wasn't, you'd lock them up too. And so ask them 10 years prior to that, hey, is it okay to be Asian in the United States? And they go, yeah, just keep to your own people. It's safe here, this and that. And then boom, something happens and they're turning. Ukrainian.
But, during there is a Burat people from Buryatia, and they're Asian. And
did you say Borat people?
Burat.
Did you just
Borat people? Burat people from Buryatia.
I was like, I think they're called Kazakhstanians. They're Kazakhstans. That's Borat. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, they are Asian, and a lot of white people mistake them for Chinese people mostly. So imagine how fun it was for them during COVID.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, Polly, thank you again. I hope you're not sent to the gulags. If you are, I'll send you a care package.
You won't make it there.
No, but in all seriously, thank you for coming on. I hope everything goes well for you. If ever,
I hope so too. I mean, I don't see my personal KGB agent over there.
That's right. I don't see any red dots.
I think he's on vacation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's good. I think I'm good here. I hope for now. I don't know if there's any agents in that can make it over here, but honestly, but seriously, thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving us your time. I would love to have you again as a beta boy on here. If anything comes up new, if there's something that maybe I've missed, or if you watch this back and you're like, oh, there was this thing I wanted to bring up that we didn't get to touch on. Let's do it again. Let's do
Wait
it
a
again.
second. I see a question.
Oh, what did I miss?
From
Oh,
someone, yeah.
yeah, go ahead. I missed that.
Can you read it? Because I can
Yeah,
see
sure,
it
sure.
properly.
So, were Polly's ancestry related to post-colonialism Africa, and the Soviets offering scholarships for schooling? So I guess how did your dad
In a
get here?
way, yeah, I guess, because my father was from Mali, and he studied here in St. Petersburg. So yeah,
Did he come here for school?
yeah.
Yep. So there you go. Awesome. Yeah. So like I said, you say anything that you wanted to say, and then you're like, oh, this is a topic that I want to talk about. Just let me know. We'll do it again.
Politics, yeah, I can talk for ages about communism.
That's our
and the dangers of communism.
we will have no leftist slander on this channel. I'm just kidding. What we can do is we can do a cage match if
We
you
can
want.
do history segment.
Let's do, which will just be anti-communism for you.
But if people who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it.
So here's what we could do. Maybe one day I'll set up a debate between you and Ben, and I could just sit here and
He's just gonna yell. He's just gonna yell his communist propaganda. I'm kidding.
I know.